merciless fury. I am cleansing rage. I am the angel's vengeance.
Once the loading hold is clear, I shall proceed into the docking limb and disengage the clamps holding the ship.
Yes, little brother. I shall cleave a path, and the path shall be lit by fire.
Coraline explains to her family what exactly happened in the other universe, though they don't seem to believe her because frankly, it's just as ridiculous as it sounds. According to Mr. Babinski, the jumping mice tasked him to send a message to Coraline, do not go through the little door. Coraline points out that it's covered by bricks, and that's when Mr. B apologizes for the apparent mix-up and says that they pronounce her name wrong, but calling her Coraline instead of Caroline, which is the correct pronunciation. How the mice know her name is not known. This is also the perfect time to point out that except for the jumping mice that led Coraline to the other door in the first place, we have yet to see these so-called jumping mice in the main universe. After some shenanigans with the banana slugs, YB mentions he's never been allowed inside the Pink Palace, and he actually does elaborate this time. Apparently his grandmother would kill him if he tried, or she believes it's dangerous. She had a twin sister who disappeared when they were kids, which led the grandmother to believe she was stolen.
I've never been inside the Pink Palace.
You're kidding.
Grandma kill me. Thinks it's dangerous or something.
Dangerous.
We also see the cat look at the Coraline doll and meow in almost an angry tone, pointing to the cat perhaps knowing more than we're led to believe. On Coraline's second trip to the other universe, we end up getting a full view of the other garden, which was designed to be in Coraline's likeness, courtesy of Other Father. Yet another nudge at Tzeentch and his whole gimmick. We are officially introduced to Other Wybie, who appears to be mute. Other Mother explained this as,
I thought you'd like him more if he spoke a little less, so I fixed him.
the same type of mice that Coraline used to bait a few of them to showing her the other door appear in Other Babinski's house in a jumping mouse circus act. Shortly afterward, we get a look at Other Babinski, who also shares similarly unrealistic proportions to the main universe Babinski, but instead of a large gut, he has a large torso and a slim waist, along with a polished blue mustache. We're seeing an awful lot of changes being made specifically to suit Coraline's desires for an ideal world. Later, we see the tank again, this time in a different location yet again, despite never being touched. Keep in mind, we see Coraline on screen for 99% of the movie, and we have not once seen her play with the tank because the only time she's not on screen is when the camera shows something from her POV or when we're nowhere near her bedroom. Sure enough, we find out that the other universe is explicitly real, though I think the audience already kind of figured that out by this point. We also found out that the cat was watching Coraline enter the other universe. If you look very closely, you can actually see the same cat, who I shall now refer to as Spawn, on top of the roof before he meows at Coraline. This is also where we find out that in the other universe, not only can Spawn talk, but he's been popping in and out of this other universe for quite a while.
I've been coming here for a while.
Other Mother hates cats, and she's tried to unsuccessfully keep him out of the other universe. He describes this as apparently some kind of game. Shortly afterwards, Spawn reveals that Other Wybie has told him that this other universe is not exactly the Elysian field that Coraline has been led to believe it is, though it's implied it might be telepathic in some ways, as Other Wybie can't literally speak as established earlier in the story. Spawn explains this as cats simply having superior senses to that of humans, but before we really get an explanation, he hears something in the distance and runs into the other Pink Palace. This is where we start to realize just how important Wybie is to the story. He's mute and can't communicate beyond hand and arm signals and facial expressions. This is also where we start to see just how free of Other Mother's control Wybie is, as everyone else seems to be unable to speak or act of their own free will, but Wybie seems to be able to wander and do what he pleases regardless of what the Other Mother is doing. We once again see Other Mother and Father ready to greet Coraline, who proceeds to tell them about how the show went. Other Wybie appears rather distraught when he sees the other parents, and Other Mother motions him to smile before closing the door on him. Other Mother then proceeds to offer Coraline to stay forever for a small favor, to sew buttons where Coraline's eyes were. The trap is officially sprung. Coraline understandably panics and rejects the offer and has to think of something quickly, so she pretends to be tired and sleepy. The other parents go along with this, for now. Coraline falls asleep in an attempt to go back to the main universe, and she thinks she's made it until it's revealed that she's still in the other universe. Uh-oh. We hear Other Father playing on his piano, or rather, just banging on the keys. When Coraline asks him where Other Mother is, he appears rather disheveled, and when he says her strength is our strength, the piano holds his mouth shut with one hand and starts wagging his other finger at him. This is a callback to when the Other Father said the piano played him.
This piano plays me.
Coraline tells him she's going to find Other Wybie. He responds by telling Coraline that Other Mother caught him with a long face, and that she didn't like it, stretching out his own mouth more than a human probably could before the piano grabs him by the face and does God knows what to him. So it seems these souls, whether human or demonic, are trapped and forced to obey Other Mother's every desire whenever she's nearby. But if she's not nearby, her realm will do the controlling for her, demonstrating immense control over her realm. Another similarity to Tzeentch: if you cut off Tzeentch's connection to his enslaved souls, they rapidly descend into madness, realizing what they've become and try to do whatever they can to help. This idea applies to most of the Chaos Gods in Warhammer.
So this is the bit where I've made a note about linking how a Chaos God basically has total control over people that they own the souls of. So Plague Marines carry Nurgle's gifts, yeah? And when Nurgle's connection to them was severed, when the warp was severed, their minds came back to them and they realized that, you know, the Plague Marines, these bloated, pustuous, disease-ridden people, were left no longer feeling like it was a gift. They were in all of the pain, feeling all of the diseases, realizing what they'd become and how far they'd fallen. And it sort of was like too much for their mind. It always makes me think of, like, I don't know if you've ever watched Doctor Who, but there's the Cybermen episode in, I believe, season 2, where the inhibitor chips are disabled and they realize what they've become, and they basically have their brains just break. Like, they can't deal with what they've become. And it's very similar to that. When you are worshipping Nurgle and you are under his corruption, you very much believe you are carrying gifts. But obviously when you no longer have that magic influencing you, you realize that in fact you aren't as great as you were. Because it's a good example of the link between a Chaos God and their minions that they control. And I think the parallel there would be the way that Other Mother controls Other Father, right? Like, it's the sort of, she very clearly has more control over him than you see on the surface, which is very similar to Chaos Gods, because on the surface you'd think, sure, they're one of his demons, they are part of what he represents. But then stories like that one with the Chaos Marines really clearly make it obvious that their control isn't surface level. It changes their mind fundamentally. They are made to believe that whatever their Chaos God wants is truly the best thing for everyone, type thing. Not in all situations, but in a lot of situations.
Spawn catches up to Coraline, asking what she's doing, and when she tells him she's escaping, we find out that it's possible to go out of bounds in the other universe. Spawn reveals that Other Mother only made what she knew would impress Coraline. When Coraline asks why Other Mother wants her, Spawn tells her
She wants something to love, I think. Something that isn't her. Or maybe she just loves something to eat.
Shortly after that, they end up right back at the other Pink Palace, further proving Spawn's point about this universe only being made as far as it will impress Coraline. Similar to Other Mother, Tzeentch loves his subjects, but it's not genuine love you would expect from a friend or a family member. It's more like how you love having a pencil, or you love having a door on your house. It's like a material love. Other Mother only loves Coraline in the sense she would love to have her soul, and when Coraline disobeys, she is thrown into a stone room where we meet the 3 spirit children mentioned earlier. Fast forward a bit, and Coraline escapes to the main universe and announces her return, only to find silence and a bag full of rotten groceries too. We then hear the doorbell ring to be greeted by none other than Wybie. Regardless, his grandmother is really mad about the Coraline doll, specifically because it was her sister's doll. Coraline accuses Wybie of stealing the doll, and he doesn't really confirm or deny that he did steal it, but deflects and said it looked like Coraline. Coraline interrupts him midway through his defense to tell him,
You used to look like this pioneer girl, then Huck Finn Jr., then it was this little rascals chick with all these ribbons and braids and Grandma's missing sister.
After running Wybie out of the house due to her apparently insane ramblings about the other universe, Coraline finds the Jones family car, only to find nobody in the car, with only Melinda's phone remaining. Coraline attempts to call Charlie, only to be left with a missed call message from her father. Clearly there's something very wrong. An angry god whose initial plan didn't work out, but has a backup plan that involves more drastic measures. This isn't too far out of possibility for something Tzeentch would do if one of his plans ever failed. Keep in mind, Tzeentch has schemes on top of schemes on top of schemes. He has backup plan on backup plan. After a while, Coraline decides to visit the main duo for some advice on her missing parents, who place a bowl full of candy from 1921 down on the table next to Coraline. When Coraline asks how it's supposed to help, that's when main April stabs the candy repeatedly until it's nothing but dust before being blown away by main Miriam. And main April plucks out a gemstone triangle with a hole in the middle. Regardless of if it's meant to find or lost bad things, it is intended to find things regardless, so Coraline walks away with the triangle in hand as the main duo argue over what it is meant to find. This weird stone is interesting. It assists the wielder in combating the demonic powers. The Imperium has tons of relics with similar or even identical purposes, and many of them are employed by the Grey Knights, Custodes, and the Sisters of Silence. One thing I do want to point out is that other Wybie kind of sort of resembles a Sister of Silence in the sense that he doesn't speak. While his vow of silence is involuntary, the Sisters of Silence, their whole gimmick is they work closely with the Custodians, and they're essentially mute personnel who take a vow of silence for life, and their way of communication is by sign language, and occasionally they'll use facial expressions. They're oftentimes used to combat forces of chaos because something about personnel who don't speak are harder to corrupt.
So the Sisters of Silence are an ancient all-female order of psychic blanks or blanks, which means they have no presence in the warp and are effectively soulless. They are like a subdivision of the Adeptus Custodes. So like, to link that back to what you were saying about YB, in theory, a blank wouldn't have a second version of themselves in the warp. They wouldn't have a soul representation or a chaos representation of themselves because that isn't how it works in Warhammer either. Like, I'm struggling to link this one for you.
I did watch a video the other day about why other species don't have as many chaos forces as humanity does. And the way it was kind of explained is that humanity already has very weak souls, but their souls are strong enough where certain numbers of humanity can still become influenced by chaos, and that humanity, what humanity calls blanks, are just individuals with really weak souls. Like, they still have a soul. Every living creature in the main Warhammer universe, like in the material realm, has a soul to some extent.
My Warhammer knowledge isn't all-knowing, but I know they are literally referred to as the soulless.
That might just be a thing. Their souls are so weak that they're just considered soulless, because the
well, there's also that thing of like the Warhammer lore is like
people
50, 60 years old and has been redone 1,000,000 times. So it could be that I'm using knowledge from a different version of the game, or, you know, I've heard it here, but in another place it's slightly different. And the Warhammer lore can get messy in places.
Because the point of the video I watched was that the Tau, the reason they have virtually zero people that convert to chaos is because their souls are so weak. They're essentially weaker or slightly on par with psychic blanks from humanity. So chaos physically cannot control them to any extent. Later in the movie, when Coraline is looking for the eyes of the 3 spirit children in order to win her freedom, we see the garden come to life and begin to attack her. On top of this, Other Father also begins attacking her, but he retains a small amount of free will.
Sorry, Mother, making me. Don't wanna hurt
Enough free will, in fact, that he hands her the first missing eye she's looking for right as he begins getting sucked into the pond within the garden. Once the eye is in Coraline's possession, the entire garden turns to stone. Coraline moves to face the other duo. The dogs there have warped into bats with dog heads. When Coraline goes to grab the second missing eye, the other duo spring from their candy wrapper chamber and attack her, revealing that now the duo have been twisted into a 2-headed, gummy creature on a single body. Fortunately, Coraline doesn't have to spend much time there before she obtains the second missing eye. Before we meet Other Babinski again, the camera pans to the moon, greenish in color and a shadow of a button looming over it. Coraline doesn't have much time left. We also see Other Wybie's clothes hanging on the flagpole right above Other Babinski's door, confirming his death. There's a lot to unpack here. So the garden clearly resembles a realm of Tzeentch, so I doubt I have to explain that one. What I do need to point out, however, is the other duo morphing into one entity. This is 100% in line with something Tzeentch would do, for he is the god of change. There are several units under Tzeentch who have 2 heads and often utilize lesser forces, often in the form of flying lethal creatures. Kairos Fateweaver, what once was just a somewhat normal magical bird demon, being one of them. I know that sounds insane, so let me explain. Within the realm of chaos lies the Well of Eternity, which is an anomalous well that nobody knows anything about, not even the chaos gods. Tzeentch oftentimes will throw his subjects into the well to study it and see what happens. Typically, nobody ever survives or returns in any way, shape, or form. However, one day Tzeentch decided to throw Kairos into the well, and he came back with 2 heads significantly larger and with severely enhanced magical abilities.
Kairos is a really interesting character within Warhammer lore. His 2 heads aren't just aesthetic. There are a lot of mutations within like Tzeentch's faction, I'll call it, that are largely, you get a big tentacle. But Kairos mutated in a really unique way where one of his heads is perpetually seeing into the future and one is always seeing into the past, which puts him in this strange position of always knowing what will be and what was, but he is blind to the present. It makes him an interesting greater demon of Tzeentch because of that difference in abilities, and in a lot of ways he's one of the few characters that knows more about the future than even Tzeentch does. There's also a key parallel in what you've said. The moment a soul is fully claimed by a chaos god, its free will is just an illusion from that point. They might have other moments of lucidity, like Other Father desperately trying to help Coraline, but the god's influence is always the main factor in their mind. The piano literally silencing him is such a potent visual for that. He's not a person anymore, he's a puppet, and his strings are being pulled by a malevolent force that despises his momentary rebellion. And I'm sure it would lead to some sort of punishment had the movie not gone how it does.
One thing I'd also like to add is that during the scene in the garden where Other Father throws the eye to Coraline, there's also another similarity to how chaos influences its slaves or its soldiers, whatever you want to call them. One thing that tends to happen when someone who's a slave to chaos is on the verge of death, when they're like about to die, they'll suddenly gain some kind of lucidity for a brief moment on rare occasions where they realize what they've become and what they've been doing, and they try to do what they can before it's too late. And it's a very rare occurrence that happens, but there are a few examples of it happening in Warhammer. Alright, I'm gonna call it for this one. This video kind of dragged on longer than I wanted it to, and if I keep going, I'm just gonna end up repeating a lot of the same points again and again. So with that, I say thank you to everyone who watched this video. If you liked it, please leave a thumbs up and let me know down in the comments if I got anything wrong. Also, tell me what you thought of the video and where I need to improve. This kind of video is a first time for me, so I want to make corrections for future videos, should I have gotten anything wrong. Please give a big thank you to RavenSPCR for helping me with the recording, and give a big thank you to Alexander Amethyst for gathering the information from the movie. Without either of them, this video probably wouldn't have been made. Good night, I love you all.
Thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.